out correctly. So the first skill you should have worked on was plotting of the points. So you want to see how Tamara's baseballs are landing and where they're, how high they're going, how far they're going. So I'm going to reset my calculator. Second plus 712. And then I'm going to go to stat. I'm going to input Tamara's data. So she had 0, 5, 10, 20, 50. And I'm going to put in 4, 10 and 42, 16 and 68 hundredths, 28 and 72 hundredths, and 61. Okay. Before we actually look at the graph, what were your predictions? Raise your hand if you said that this was going to be a linear model.
Oh, predict before.
Yeah.
Oh. Didn't do that, but it looks linear because it's having like one. It's like 6 in the first, and then 6 in the second, about 15 in the second too, and then the same.
Okay. Okay. And anyone thought it was quadratic? Any hands for quadratic? Any hands for exponential? Any hands saying that I just didn't do this and I'm going to always wonder why my grade is what my grade is? Got it. Appreciate the honesty. All right. So this is about plotting the points. So before I actually do anything, I'm going to plot my points. In order to plot the points, I have to turn it on. So I'm going to turn on plot 1. And then I'm going to go to zoom, and I want to go down to zoom 9. And that's because I want to be able to see my points on the graph. And when I look, what does it look like? Linear. It looks like a linear situation, right? I'm looking at the scatter plot. It looks linear. They're increasing. So this is a linear model, okay? So when I go to step 2, using a graphing utility to determine the regression, I'm going to go to stat, calc, and I'm going to go to linreg. Do we see that? Yeah. Okay, that's 4. Now, if I thought it was quadratic, where would I have gone? Quadreg. If I thought it was exponential, I would have gone all the way down to 0 to xreg. Do we see that? So it's the same steps to get to this. You just have to determine whether it's linear, quadratic, or exponential. Does that make sense? All right. So we voted that this was a linear. So I'm going to press 4. Now, if I want the calculator to graph it for me, on yours, you would go down to where it says, guys, you would go down to where it says Stowe equation, Stowe, whatever it says, Storeg, something like that. And you would go vars, y vars, and I want to make it a function, and I want it to store it in y1. What this does is it allows the calculator to graph the exact function for you. Okay, so it takes the graphing off of my hand and it puts the exact function in there for me. I'm going to hit enter, and it says, well, here is your best matched equation. 1.132506329 x plus 4.911394, whatever that is. Okay, you get what I'm going. All right. The calculator will graph it exactly like this versus us having to round. Does that make sense? So we would get a more precise and accurate answer. All right. I want to show you the difference. So I'm going to write it in a rounded version. So I'm going to write it as 1 and 1300ths x plus 4 and 91. Okay, that's me rounding. Does that make sense? All right. When I graph, they're going to be fairly close in this window. Like they're going to pretty much line up on top of each other. You don't see it because they line up on top of each other. However, the difference is going to come from the table. Okay, so we're going to look at the table. And in order to get to our table, we are going to go to second window, and we're going to switch it from auto to ask. And the reason being is, do I really want to scroll all the way down to 100? No, I do not want to scroll all the way down to 100. I want to be able to put in 100 and get a said value from it. In order to do that, you have to press second window, and then you can type in whatever you want in the table. So when I go second graph, my table is going to be blank because it's like, hey, bro, what you want from me? I'm like, I want 100. And I type in 100. Do you see the difference between the exact and our approximate?
Yeah, they're a little bit. Why do we have to have them?
That's if you're inputting it yourself instead of letting the calculator input. So that's why I'm saying the key thing is to be comfortable with going to vars, going to y vars, and letting the calculator input.
So like a whole number.
It's a whole difference. Do we see that?
Yeah.
Okay. And so when it said approximately how many feet are we? Well, if I do the most exact, we're 118 and 1600ths of feet away, right? If I do the approximate, which I typed in, we're 117 and 91 hundredths away, feet away. Okay. So be mindful and be careful when you're inputting. And when you do this, a lot of people are like, I didn't see my answer. Well, you didn't see your answer because you had the approximate instead of the most approximated, which is what the calculator comes up with. Okay. So again, your friend is y var. So I'm going to do it again. And then we're going to move on because this is just kind of a summary of what we've been working on for almost 3 weeks. Like, phew, into one problem. All right. So recapping what we did, we went to stat. We put in our information. All good. Okay. Then we went to Y1. We turned on our plot by pressing enter. Plot was turned on. Then we went to zoom and went down to zoom stat because we put in stats and we want to be able to see our stats. Does that make sense? And then when we went to zoom stat, we turned it on and it plotted our lines for us. Okay. At this time, it also is plotting our graph because we already made our graph. But once we did that, we went to stat calc and we determined which regression model did we need. We needed the linear. So we went,
What's the other?
we have linear, quadratic, and exponential. Okay, so lin, quad, and x. All right, but we determined that it was linear. We pressed 4, and we want the graph to be able to graph it for us so we can have the most precise answer. Does that make sense? So that's where we went to vars. Vars is just short for variables. X and Y are variables, right? So we went to variables and we went to Y vars because we were talking about Y equals and we want to create a function for us. So we went to 1 and we wanted to graph it for us in Y1. And we click 1 and the calculator does the rest of the work, right? So when we went to Y equals, oh my gosh, it typed all of that in there for me. Crazy. All of that. I didn't type none of those digits. Okay. All right. And then after I did that, it says, okay, approximate 100 feet. Did I want to scroll all the way down to 100 feet? No. So we went second window and we switched our independent from auto to ask. So we switched our independent from auto to ask. And then I hit second graph and went to the table and typed in what I wanted. Okay. And now I can see the difference in the calculator's approximation and my approximation. All right. Okay. Again, this is kind of a collection of everything we've been working on, all in one problem. All right.